you are a participant, please press pound to continue. You entered 360362. This host key is invalid. Please re-enter your host key followed by pound. Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. You are in the meeting now. You are the first participant. Please stand by. This meeting is being recorded.
We have a Zoom group. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Redistricting Advisory Committee meeting for Wednesday, September 29th. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Any individual who are not fully vaccinated for COVID-19 and wish to attend this meeting will be required to wear a face shield or a mask throughout the duration of their attendance. And we strongly encourage folks on Zoom to participate. Please signal Heather, and she'll jump you in. We're fairly informal, so we're happy to have you. First item, call to order. We have one excused absence that I'm aware of. Robert Enyart. You heard from the other two, so okay. So we've got 2, 4, 7 of us, 8 of us, no, 7 of us out of 10, so we're ready to go. Next item is approval of the agenda for September 29th. I hope you all read it. Entertain a motion to approve that.
I'll move to approve, but I was hoping we'd get a review of the data coming in for the census data coming in. That I asked for as an agenda item, it didn't make it in. So can we sneak that in under other items and questions?
Sure.
Okay.
No problem.
So I'll move to approve the agenda.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Been approved. Approval of the September 1st minutes.
Well, I'll go ahead, Andy Byrne. They look pretty comprehensive to me. I didn't see any particular issues, so I'll move to approve if nobody has any clarifications. Very comprehensive.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Approval of the September minutes has been passed. Public matters not on the agenda. Anyone wish to speak to the committee with respect to any item that's pertinent? I ask that you limit your conversation to 5 minutes. Seeing nobody running up here. Seeing nobody on Zoom. No one signifying on Zoom. Okay. We'll move on. Complete the COI review. Last time we got into a rhythm. As long as Ruslan can get the items up.
Yeah, they're all here. I just don't remember where we left off.
Fair enough.
I think
Homestead.
Clipped them together and left them and looked at them. I hope everybody's had a chance to review them. believe we, would be starting with the ION.
Yeah.
That's,
There we go.
Chairman Sweet, based on the minutes from the last meeting, we left off at Homestead, so Ione or whatever is after Homestead.
so the item before us then would be the ION band Miwok, number 1, and only 1, I believe.
Yes.
I want to remind everybody who looks at these that they're predicated on the ability to grab information using the census blocks that are available to us. So in all cases, they may be either a little bit larger or a little bit smaller than what one might actually walk with respect to some of these items. And that applies to everything that we've looked at or everything that we will look at. Anybody have any issues with the presentation of the Band of Miwok community of interest?
Turn on your mic.
Population on that?
2010 shows a 1.
If there's no comment or conversation, we'll just move on to the next one. Irish Town. It's south of Pine Grove, Irish Town Road. We'll find that encompassed, I suspect,
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
in a larger area.
It's encompassed within the Pine Grove,
Right.
one. There'll be a bunch that are encompassed, which was kind of the point I was going for.
Although, as you mentioned last time, I think, even though something is encompassed inside of something, if and when there is a line drawn through it, we would want to take into consideration
That's right.
that which is being cut
Yeah.
one way or another.
Yeah, if you have to cut a COI down the middle, you don't want to cut all of the COIs that are in it also down the middle of each one of those. So it gives you something else to look at if you're looking to be
Right.
careful.
Just something to remember. Okay, we'll move on. Jackson Pines.
Same thing happens with this. This one might partially be in the Pine Grove overlap, but there might be some argument. Some people in there might consider themselves Jackson because of the name and or they're currently in District 1. So.
Right, and their zip code is
Right.
Jackson zip code.
Right.
I think.
I don't know for sure.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that some of them are.
Yeah, no, for sure, some of them are, right.
That Southerly Road, what is?
Can you get on the mic?
The road on the south there, what is that?
Clinton Road?
That's Clinton Road, yeah.
The main body of it going left to right. Is that East and West Clinton?
That might be West Clinton Road.
Oh, it
that
is. Okay, I can see it. Okay.
All right. Jackson Rancheria, we have a Jackson Rancheria 1 and a Jackson Rancheria 2.
Yeah.
1 is totally encompassed in 2, and I think 2 is probably a better representation.
I'd agree with that. I think I probably put the original Jackson Rancheria in, and I just plugged in, just the one right where it was, not knowing much about it, knowing that we would get more details. So I would definitely say Rancheria 2 is the one we'd want to use.
We'll pull number 1 from the list. Casey Ranchettes.
Actually, if we're going in alphabetical, there is a new one that was added recently called Jackson Valley Lake Amador.
Okay, well, we can look at it.
Yeah, I added this,
Which one up there are we looking at?
oh,
The blue one.
the big blue.
The big blue one?
It's the Jackson Valley area, basically. It's not heavily populated, but it's definitely a ranch area. There's definitely a community there. I've had them pop up at me at a planning commission meeting, when quarries are up. So there's definitely a community there. So I put it in earlier this last week, yeah.
Pretty brazen of you.
Yeah. I had somebody in on the,
No,
a person from the public who was.
well done, actually. Thank you. Okay, so we have that on the list, but we don't have one in front of us, but that's okay. No problem. Okay.
I probably have a couple more. Sorry.
Got all the input that we can get from anybody and everybody, including you, Andy.
No, it wasn't just me. I had people from the public with me when I was mapping it. I missed it entirely, so the first, I was just going along with what other people were telling me at this point.
Don't pay attention to me.
Could you go back to that last one?
Loopy Road.
Could you go?
Oh, wait a minute.
Back to that last one, just
Dude.
a
Back to
second?
Jackson.
Jackson Valley?
Yeah,
Jackson Valley.
I was just curious on the top right, what are those roads?
Stony Creek, main one.
Okay,
Yeah, some of that got big because the census blocks are pretty big in there. I don't know that I would have made it that big otherwise.
yeah, it's interesting, okay. That's definitely a community.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised
Lucy?
we missed it once we found it.
Next item would be Loopy Road, I believe.
Oh,
Casey Ranch.
KC Ranchettes.
Casey,
Oh,
Ranchette?
I was, yeah, Casey Ranchettes. We have more than one Casey we just had
No.
one, didn't we? Looks like it's pretty good to me. I mean, it's the area. Moving on.
Yeah, in fact, with the map, I would see it fits in with there might be another community interest that goes over the top of it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at that, just the map, there's a pretty dense population in there.
Question for population.
43, that's what it's showing here.
Yeah.
Okay. Loopy Road.
Actually, I think we have Lockwood before that.
Well, so I was working on these the last couple of days, and I've got my own out of order, so.
Yeah, mine are a little out of order too.
There are 4 Lockwood.
We have 4 for Lockwood, and, so here's probably, we need some discussion, so. Can you bring up, 1, 2, 3, and 4 all at once?
Yes, actually,
So actually, Lockwood number 2 encompasses 1, 2, 3, and 4.
yes.
Yeah.
Now, is there anybody here who can speak to 1, 3, and 4 as to why they differentiate, or can speak to number 2? I mean, how do we get, is it the bigger or is it the smaller? Is it the one in the middle? Which one is it?
Can you get on your mic?
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think the largest one is a result of, small census blocks. For instance, Lockwood generally is not known to extend all the way down into Fiddletown. The usual, border for Lockwood as I know it, would be Brockman Mill, which is quite a ways up Fiddletown Road from Fiddletown. But I think it got this size out towards Fiddletown because of just the size of the census blocks.
Okay. And so as what you just said was that they're all to the west a little bit too far to the west. They're all too far to the west.
Yes, and in terms of the blob on top, as far as the more southerly extent to the west, that's about accurate. The Lockwood generally goes down to almost Stage Road, which would be, you know, a Sutter Creek address.
Okay.
And I believe, Lockwood 1, well, no, even that goes all the way up, Shake Ridge, so. Ignore what I was gonna say.
Right. Does it?
Oh, it does.
Okay. I'm just asking questions for the record, so, so it's fair to say, I mean, will the committee accept that, we're gonna use Lockwood 2 and,
That would be, Andy Byrne, that would be my, consensus, because I think what it is you'd want to add part of the top one, but it's just one big census block. I ran into that when I was doing some mapping on, Monday too. So you know, and what it'll tell us is if, when there's a line out there, we're just gonna have to be looking out for it.
Exactly. Yeah, this is all gonna come to bear during the actual, figuring out of the, supervisorial districts, because the part of that shouldn't be included in the Lockwood, community of interest. But to remove that would be to remove a major portion of what should be in there.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna have to pay attention when we actually start drawing the supervisorial lines.
all right?
It'll be interesting, because that's gonna be the same problem when you actually draw the supervisorial lines. They're gonna be pushed in these directions the same way that we're pushing these COIs. And, it will make some lines go places that you wouldn't necessarily want them, because some places, like when I was doing a sample one, I wanted to push a line straight through one of these, but you just can't do that, so.
I've got a comment. This is Tom Patton, District 5, and I'm all in favor of doing whatever we want to do, especially in Don's opinion, because of his knowledge of an association with the Lockwood District, to the extent that it doesn't eliminate any of the Dry Creek community of interest. And there is overlap there.
Yeah.
There's also overlap, excuse me, with the Fiddletown one. But I think we've all agreed that overlaps are okay as long as there's a difference of, or as long as there's, I guess, synergy, maybe is the word I'm looking for. And I like the idea of Lockwood and Dry Creek together because of the fire protection issue. So I'm all for that.
We're agreed that, Lockwood 2, and I'll scrap the other, Lockwood 1, 3, and 4. I'm not sure what the next one is on the list.
Lower Ridge.
Lower Ridge.
And also,
the chair is gonna, ask that you all try to find Upper Ridge, Lower Ridge, Middle Ridge, and Ridge.
and just Little
Yeah.
Ridge, yeah.
All at the same time.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
And, let's take a look at them that way. Can you do that for us, Andy, or Ruslan? Sorry.
Yes. So Upper Ridge,
Upper Ridge, Middle Ridge, Lower Ridge, and Ridge.
there is.
There is. I'm not sure.
Well, even 3 Junction crosses over that one. Middle. There.
My first question, when I was looking at these, was Lower Ridge I don't know, maybe it's just me personally, but I have that in my mind as from 49 down to 88.
Oh, that's lower Ridge. Sorry.
Okay, fine.
No,
That's what
I could definitely, for sure, when I actually mapped this one, and I just, I didn't go further down and find a community. I'm not, maybe there is one there, it seems it's more commercial, and maybe that would act as it, but
Yeah, and
I wasn't seeing it.
part of
when I was
it's in
mapping.
Sutter Creek.
Right.
Part of it I think is in the county.
Right, well, and part of that, the part that's in Sutter Creek is uninhabited for the most part,
Right.
so.
Okay. All right, so let's take the lower ridge. By and of itself. Andy, can you, I'm sorry, Ruslan.
Lower Ridge is entirely within Ridge.
Okay,
Right.
so subtract it. All right.
Right, and when I was mapping, I put these in because currently there's a conflict going through these areas of supervisorial districts. So I thought it was important to look at those areas where there's current conflicts, when I was mapping.
Okay, so Lower Ridge 2 is all within Ridge Road. Is that what we're saying?
I already removed it. But it is, yeah.
Okay. But we want to, I heard Mr. Burns saying that, Lower Ridge 1 should still be retained within Lower Ridge 2.
You know, yeah, the reason I put, I think I can see keeping multiples, because as it stands today, there is a conflict through this area. And that if there is another line going through this with the new mapping, we'd want to have all the small ones. So if we go through, we can at least keep some of the small ones intact if we cut through a bigger one. That being the logic I had behind that. That would be the only reason I like keeping multiples inside, is if they're not the same place. Well, this is a long stretch of road, and there'd be multiple communities as you go along this stretch of road, because there are gaps in it. And the mapping technique we use doesn't always come up with the gaps. So we have to kind of find those to work them out with the mapping technique. Don looks like something.
Well, yeah, it's definitely going to overlay other COIs. If you look at the Upper Ridge Road 1, that encompasses the major part of Pine Grove.
Right, it also overlaps with Surrey Junction, which is
Right.
another one.
So
yeah.
So there's going to be overlap, especially with something as vague, if you will, as Ridge Road.
Yeah.
Chairman Sweet,
Yes.
we do have a comment via Zoom. Ms. Peters, go ahead when ready.
Hi, I just had a question. This is Susan Peters, sorry. District 4. I was wondering where the boundaries, if it's possible to show the Pine Grove CSD on the Upper Ridge to determine I think that the Upper Ridge boundary should be commensurate with the CSD for Pine Grove, that should either be in its own district or own neighborhood, or encompass it, in there.
Want to say that again, Susan?
I'm worried about the boundary on the Upper Ridge, that it is maybe going into part of the Pine Grove CSD. It should either be in, completely in the CSD or out of it, because I think dividing it in the middle of the CSD would not be the right thing to do.
We put the CSD up there for just Pine Grove, and then, is that,
Those are the CSDs. Pine Grove is the yellow one.
So the maroon one is the Sunset Heights, so that's completely in that. So that makes sense to me, but dividing the Upper Ridge you know, that.
Susan, this is Andy Byrne. I think this is one of those cases that we end up with overlap, and you can have communities overlap each other, and I think that's one of the things that we're looking at is when you have a bunch of them overlap, that starts to show you a larger community that you're not going to want to run a line through. That's how I've been interpreting it, and with mapping all these COIs. And the service districts are pre-mapped. They're already a layer in our mapping, so they're already in consideration. Does that help?
Yeah, I'm concerned about the ultimate impact, how it's going to look at the end, because the way District 4 is mapped out right now is chaotic at best. So I'm just concerned that Pine Grove CSD is going to be split up or not in one district. It should remain in one district.
Yeah, the CSD is also a community of interest, so it's already on our list of things that probably should not be split.
Yeah, and
Perfect.
also Pine Grove is a census designated place, and that is also being considered.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and it overlaps. You can see again that even overlaps some more.
Okay. Are there different versions of the Upper Ridge Road neighborhood, or is there only one being proposed?
Well, right now we have four
But only one for
proposals, but we're trying to narrow it down.
Yeah, there's only one for Upper Ridge Road, though.
Yeah.
Well, or at least there's one called Upper Ridge Road.
Right, that would be one call. And there's probably some overlap with like Surrey Junction, I think might overlap on, there might be some others that overlap on it also.
Okay.
Because there definitely going to be a bunch of them that overlap because of the census blocks that we are working with on the mapping on the mapping software.
All right. Well, thank you for addressing my questions. I'll keep watching.
Yeah, keep watching.
And it appears that Surrey Junction is completely within the Upper Ridge Road, as designated here.
Right. I couldn't tell from these printed maps, so.
Okay, so let's bring it back. We've still got four maps that have the word ridge in them. And the question is, we've got one that's contained within the other one.
Yeah.
So do we in fact have 4 ridge communities?
I suspect there's probably a lot more in there because there's a bunch of small neighborhoods speckled through there. But with the census block issue, that's why we kind of went big with it. Is with the census block issue, there might be 2 small communities in a census block that are completely separate from each other. That the census block just overlaps them and it puts them all in one. We don't know where the actual people live.
Right.
So.
But
I'd be willing to stick with the larger one and just being aware of it when we do mapping, that this is, an area that's sensitive. I think that's kind of where we get to it on it.
we're going to retain all 4 of them. Is that the committee's suggestion, or are we going to retain just one and eliminate several others? Are we going to retain 3 and eliminate 1?
I personally would just assume keep them, because I think that it is very likely that this is an area where there is, it has been in the past, and,
Okay.
With the mapping exercises, it's very easy for lines to go through this area.
Okay, the chair doesn't object. No one else does. Keep all 4 of those, Mr. Ruslan. Are we at Loopy now?
Yeah. And that one overlaps in here too.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, by the way, now that we mention it.
Right, and that's contained in what we now call Upper Ridge Road.
Right. And it might even overlap on the Surrey Junction one, I'm not positive.
Okay, well, we'll keep these for future reference, so we'll have
Yeah.
something to converse with if anybody,
That's right.
when we get into the discussions of where the lines are to be. Makes sense. We have two Meadowbrooks, they both look exactly identical. Can we eliminate, Meadowbrook 2?
Yeah, one moment. Oh, yeah, they are the same.
Okay, Mariah Heights, and, go ahead.
You know, something that might be interesting as we go through these, if we could just hear populations
Oh, sure.
to get an idea.
One oh seven for Mariah Heights.
We can't read that from here. What is,
107.
107.
that's a neighborhood and keep it in consideration. No issues there. Same with Mount Echo. Population of Mount Echo,
95.
thank you. Mount Zion,
530.
Yeah, and it overlaps with Pine Grove also.
right. Just for everybody's, can you put Pine Grove back up there?
It'll also overlap with Pine Acres, I think.
Okay. Right?
Start driving back.
Well, they're all over the place.
Privitale Road,
So there's two M's also left. I don't know if they got printed. There's Mace Meadows, shown up here with 1,952.
Oh. That's one.
and, I don't think we have any objections to Mace Meadows being a community of interest.
For sure.
And the last M is Martel
Oh, right.
with 224.
One of those is, you have,
In the middle, in between
The blue.
Sutter Creek.
right? Well, I know where it is. I mean, where it is on the screen.
Oh. It's,
Contained within what?
it's not contained within anything.
It looks like it might overlap on Sutter Creek.
Yeah, it overlaps with the
Yeah.
Sutter Creek border.
And you could make the argument it would probably even overlap on Jackson, so.
Yeah. Yeah, we would make that argument.
Yeah, I thought you might.
We've been making it for years.
Yeah.
Right, Susan? Okay. We all agreed on that?
Yeah, sure.
Acceptable? Okay.
And
Now are we back to,
there's another new one, the Oaks.
acceptable to me?
473.
Yeah, I found that one again with, another member of the public.
Sure. Good job. Okay, we back to, Privitale.
There's two Privitales. Privitale 1, Privitale 2. 2 is bigger.
Am I correct in seeing the number 2 is extending all the way to Jackson?
Yeah.
I think that's a little optimistic.
Well, I think some of it, again, is, census blocks. It just kind of runs you all the way down there. I don't know that area particularly well, so I'm not gonna argue one way or the other on it. It does.
Yeah, but not towards Jackson. Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah, if you look at the census block on it, there's a pretty big census block at the bottom of it. And that may be why one is marked as the top and one adds the bottom to it, because like, there's probably stuff on the top of the bottom portion of it that actually makes sense. Like Lockwood, you cut that thing in half and, you know,
That bottom portion of the one that's on the screen, is that not Privitale Road?
yeah,
It is.
that is.
And there,
So, yeah, if you're
There isn't
living
much
on
development.
Privitale Road, and if you're on the other side of it, I don't know how the population lays out.
Yeah, right.
But and so the next block over is the other side of that road. So that's, I think, if I did it, I'm not positive I did. That's what I would have been thinking when I clicked on it.
I would ask the county, I'm not all that familiar with the area, but, is there that much residential housing to the south of Privitale Road?
So Privitale
South,
one,
according to this map here.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Privitale one is at 187. Privitale 2 is at 320.
There's about half and half.
I've driven Previtale at the bottom, and there's easily 20 homes in that first part,
Keep
Yeah.
in mind
less than a mile.
the 320 includes all of Privitale one.
So the bottom half is the same as the top half, roughly. I mean, they're in that same population range, 150 or so. So, but yeah, but again, with these blocks, we don't know where the actual homes are, so. And when I did some mapping, there were some lines possibly in there, so. So,
Okay.
I would consider that.
Well, for, Prince and Gagos, we'll move on and we'll keep them both.
Right.
Now we're into, Pine Grove 1,
2 and 3.
Pine
and
Acres.
a couple of Pine Grove, oh, that's Pine Acres.
Oh, Pine Acres. That's not even.
Pine Grove 1, Pine Grove 2, Pine Grove
Oh, there it is.
3.
Yeah,
They're arguably all the same.
I think we had Pine Acres first, which also overlaps.
Pine
The
Acres.
Pine Grove one.
You want to do Pine Acres? Okay.
Yeah. In fact, you could maybe even show the Pine Grove one over with it.
Yeah.
Pine Acres 1, is right here. Pine Grove 1. Pine Grove 2, which is encompassed within Pine Grove 1. And Pine Grove 3.
So, is there anybody to speak to Pine Grove 3?
I honestly have no recollection which one I put in.
Well,
I
the
would
question
go-
is, do we want to retain Pine Grove 3 for purposes like we want to retain others that are inclusive? I would say that.
I wouldn't argue with you on
Talking
that.
Pine Grove,
Yeah.
I would think most of us would argue the larger would be the Pine Grove.
That'd be the one I would go for, would be the larger one, yeah.
Can we take Pine Grove 2 out?
So real quick,
Pine Grove 3 out?
Pine Grove 1 is 4,170. Pine Grove 2, 4,048. Pine Grove 3, 4,464.
That's why they went there, to create 4 different districts.
Well, I can understand why depending upon which little census block you picked up.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
We're back in that same situation, why we get those little edges out there.
That's right, that's right.
That, like he just clicked on.
Yeah.
So I guess the discussion would be at this point, before we move on, is that right, northeast corner that's represented in the gray now?
Yeah.
Can we get a better definition of where that is? Are we going to, say that
It pushes right up against northeast corner, it's go north, yeah. The northeast corner pushes up against Volcano, but it doesn't get there. It goes over Grinding Rock.
Yeah, correct.
All right, is there anybody want to speak to whether Grinding Rocks is in Volcano or Pine Grove?
Ann Heisenbuttle, District 5 alternate. I separated out Grinding Rock so that we would have, I mean, I don't know if it really would be more attached to Pine Grove or to Volcano, probably Pine Grove. But I wanted it to be recognized as a separate district or separate community so that if we have to draw lines within Pine Grove somewhere, it's at least identifiable, like we've talked about with some of the other communities that overlap or are contained within bigger ones.
Okay, so you're suggesting that that gray area, I call it light gray area up there, which encompasses Grinding Rocks, should be called Pine Grove for the purpose
in the same overlay.
Yeah, yeah, I'm okay with that.
So we keep it there.
Yeah, I would argue that you could probably get 10 more different maps for Pine Grove. I mean, so I'm not gonna.
And you know, we need 5 people.
Right.
Yeah. But as we move ahead, we have to
Well, I would go with.
be fairly clear as to why we're making decisions.
That's right.
And if we're dropping things that in and out, we have to verbalize why. So.
I get for sure, and I would say if we could stick with just the larger one, because there's a lot of communities of interest that are underlaid in the Pine Grove area, that if we have to put a line through there, we have the other communities of interest that you could use as a border, right? So you would be going, maybe if Pine Grove is going to be cut, we'd want to have it cut where Grinding Rock is either in it or out of it, right? And so it would be the Grinding Rock one that would be your key in this one, not the Pine Grove overlay. And that you could make that argument in any community where there's multiple overlays. Lockwood, for example, would be
Lockwood,
that example. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So what do we have up there now, Ruslan?
So the Pine Grove 3 kind of extends more this way. And Pine Grove 1 goes more north-south a little bit. So Pine Grove 3 is right here, which doesn't.
I'm confused here. So is Pine Acres, because we did talk about Pine Acres.
Yeah.
Is it in 3, Pine Grove 3?
It's in it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of within
Okay,
all of
I just
them.
wanna make sure.
In all of them.
All right. All right. And we include Grinding Rock in there as well. And I don't have the population for Grinding Rock. Do you have that?
Yeah. $276.
Thank you.
You leave that on there. And go back and put, the Pine Grove ones back up.
Pine Grove 1, 2, 3.
What's the committee's?
So they all leave something out compared to each other. There's not one that all of them.
Well, would it be the committee's, would the committee want to discuss that Pine Grove is the sum of all 3? And
Yeah, that would be my inclination.
those would be the Pine Grove borders if you
Yeah,
if you used all three of them together.
yeah. No, I agree. That would be a great way of describing it. And I don't know if we need to map that or,
I could merge them.
okay, that's perfect. Yeah.
All right. We move on from that then.
Yeah,
We're
I think
still at
that's a
about
good,
Pine Grove is the sum of our current Pine Grove project.
I think that's a good solution.
And so that gets us at about 4,200 with the bigger one, correct?
I think it's about 44.
About 4,400, I
Okay.
think, yeah.
Okay.
What about Pine Acres?
Well, it's an underlayment,
Yeah, just leave it as, well, yeah, an underlayment rather than overlay.
yeah.
Okay.
In here?
Pioneer,
Pioneer.
Pioneer 1. Personally, when I looked at this myself, I was wondering why nothing to the right of, as we look at the map of 88 is included in Pioneer.
Does Pioneer have a place of interest, the, census place?
Yes.
Could you overlay that?
That's what that
So the,
is.
hold on.
Yeah, it doesn't,
The Pioneer CDP is the gray one.
Oh, okay,
so they're pretty close.
okay.
Yeah, I believe I mapped that, and I believe I used the CDP as a template.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. I was just thinking something down toward the green shade would be considered Pioneer. But if
Yeah.
the committee's willing to move ahead with the
You know,
CDP,
I think in general, once you leave Pine Grove, it's all Pioneer until you get up to Dewdrop. But there are neighborhoods like Buckhorn and Red Corral and that actually exist and are a part of what I consider the greater Pioneer.
Sure.
there are no objections, we'll accept that.
Are we keeping Pioneer or, okay.
Yeah. And then Ranch House Estates, which falls within Pioneer, does it not? Or is it above?
Pine Grove.
It's on the edge of Pine Grove, yeah. It's between the two.
Yep.
$146.
Will there be a discussion at some point whether that, if we had to draw a line, would the committee consider it Pioneer or Pine Grove?
That would be the discussion when you're putting a line through there, absolutely.
Okay.
And it also might just end up on one side of the line or the other because of population pressures, which I've definitely been finding. You start looking for 50 people here or 50 people there to make the district fit, so.
You're keeping track of all these little conversations, right, Heather? Okay.
Only the good ones.
There you go. I think Ranch House Estates is fine.
Okay.
I like the Region 100.
Yeah,
wasn't-
that threw me when I was looking at that.
Is
Where
that
did
something
come
like
from?
Area 51?
I think it's a little more convoluted.
Yeah, definitely.
It had there was no name, so. it was
What's the
never-
explanation of this?
I have no idea.
The region is because that's the default name
Right.
that we were using. It just never got renamed.
Or is it actually one that just was maybe a mistake? Because the way
Maybe.
it's drawn out is kind of funny. That would be my first inclination is, it's west of Plymouth.
It actually looks to me like somebody was drinking with an Etch-a-Sketch.
Well, so,
What's the population there, Rosen?
113.
yeah, but why wouldn't it have that big chunk in the middle added to it?
Do we have any history on this at all? Do we know?
I don't know the Plymouth area very well. I don't know if anybody else does.
I think our chairman just made a command decision.
If there's nobody on the dais that can explain this, then
No,
we'll
let
just
it go.
eliminate it. They obviously, none of you have a vested interest in it, I take it.
No.
Although Stephanie's not here, and that would be in her area, but,
No,
No, that's in District
She's-
5.
she's District 3.
oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Right here.
I for
She's
one in
just
District
in-
5, say, let it go.
In Dawn's area.
Okay, River Pines.
You can't argue with River Pines. It has a little hole in it,
And
though.
why would you if you could? Actually, I think the River Pines, sphere of influence, if you will, is actually a little bit larger than what this shows, but I think that it's limited by the census block.
I would agree with you on that for sure.
On the county line.
Yes, and the river.
Yeah, the river. I think it's okay.
372.
Yeah, and I suspect that it wouldn't get bigger, because if it got bigger, it would be giant, which.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And that's, I'm like, you and I mapped it early on, and we just kept it small because otherwise it gets really, really big and it doesn't
Right.
actually describe.
And also it impinges on Shenandoah Valley.
Right. And I'm not sure if there's actually an overlap there.
No, not on this.
No, I mean, no, if we made it bigger, the overlap wouldn't necessarily make as much sense.
Oh, yeah, right.
Although there's a hole in it that might need to be filled in.
Yes.
Yeah, the pink is the CDP,
Yeah,
River Pines.
Ah,
yeah. So we're
that
pretty
works
close.
out pretty well.
Yeah,
And it covers that hole, too.
yeah. We don't want river pines leaking out. Is your mic on?
For the record, so that Zoom folks and maybe myself know, once again, the CDP have been designated by whom and why?
Wouldn't it be a LAFCO layer?
No, it's designated by the Department of Commerce. It is done by the Census Bureau. That's why it is a census designated place.
Why do you differentiate one place and then from another, designate one as a census designated place and some other area not as a census designated place? How do they choose them?
There's an algorithm.
Mr. Beatty, can you explain that?
Oh, he's hiding over there. Yeah.
Chuck Beatty with the planning department. So it's just by population clusters. That's how they determine it. Just that's that simple.
Okay, but we have a map with 300 population clusters on it. Why do they choose one population cluster and not another?
What do they use as a threshold between, okay, we're going to use these census blocks and then stop?
Yeah.
I can't answer that.
Okay.
Because
I'm guessing
we
it's
know
an
from looking at the CDP boundaries that they don't necessarily follow the census block boundaries.
That's right.
I mean,
Correct.
Obviously there they follow the road, the northern boundaries, the county boundaries, so there's obviously a census block boundary there, but they don't always line up that way.
And I can actually,
What's the purpose of designated a census place?
I doubt it had to do with a historical reference. It's most likely just the cluster of, and I don't know what that density is that makes them use that.
And Mr. Chairman, it develops a data set that's very similar to an incorporated city. So you get more census data with a census designated place as you do unincorporated open area.
Thank you very much.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
That makes sense to you?
And also, if you look at, the CDPs in Amador County, you know, you've got Buckhorn, you've got, Red Corral, but the new ones for this year were, Amador Pines, I believe,
Right.
and Lockwood. Now, how those could be new, I don't think their population has changed dramatically since the last census, so I'm unclear as to what the threshold is for them to add. Do they have a quota that they have to add? Or how did they find Lockwood? I've been curious about that ever since I found out that it was a new census designated place. How'd they find us?
I think I have an answer for that. So every 10 years before they start actually counting, they do the prep work first, where they reach out to local communities, local governments for input. So that outreach would have started like 2016, 2017-ish. But that's just some behind the scenes process.
We know that the Census Bureau looked to us to decide whether they wanted to do Lockwood or Amador Pines as one unit, and then they eventually settled on 2 separate units.
Interesting.
All right, thank you. I'm a little more clear now. Okay, so we're accepting River Pines. We're almost done. Running Gold. Doesn't look out of place.
There's 2 of them.
Running Gold 2 extends northeast.
Goes east and north. There's no holes in it. I say we go with Running Gold 2.
Running Gold 1 should disappear. Running Gold 2, we keep. Shenandoah Valley 1, Shenandoah Valley 2.
And 3.
Looks like 2 and 3 are identical.
You look similar.
Yes, exactly.
I would recommend we take Valley, number 1, because it's bigger.
Now we're cooking with gas.
Andy's making me a disciple.
2 and 3, please.
What's the population on that one?
Please remove 2 and 3.
Shenandoah 1, 320. Shenandoah 2,
Yeah, you're just missing that one.
310.
Keep 1.
All right, keep 1.
1,
Sherwood Forest 1, Sherwood Forest 2, Sherwood Forest 3. If they're not all the same, I don't know what is.
Oh, there's some differences. Little bitty differences.
Sherwood Forest 1 with 115. Sherwood Forest 2 with 236. There's a difference. So, wait, so that's 1, this is 2, back and forth. And Sherwood Forest 3,
There it is.
yeah, there it is, 236, and then Sherwood Forest, wait. So Sherwood Forest 2 is 236, Sherwood Forest 3 is 226. But 2 is,
2 is the bigger one.
Yeah.
Keep 2.
Where's Gary when you need him?
Ann Heisenbuttle, I have family living up in there, and I would think that, that number 1 reflects Sherwood Forest community more than 2, because it doesn't really go all the way up to, I think it's Sugar Pine Drive. More of Sugar Pine Drive is included in number 1 that I wouldn't think would be part of Sherwood Forest.
Well, number 2 includes quite a bit more of Sugar Pine Drive. Actually, 1 is the farthest away.
Including more of Sugar Pine Drive, those houses are part of Sugar Pine Drive. They're not part of Sherwood Forest.
So
Right, yeah, they're part of actually Amador Pines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One is the better representation.
So I would recommend number 1.
I can go with that.
If you live there, you should know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, number 1.
Number 1 it is. Scratch 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And Ridge is the next one.
Now we got Sugar Pine Ridge. There we go. Fits right in.
Sugar Pine Ridge with 667.
Yeah, and this is a place where I can imagine in some corners of it, it may overlap even, but
Yeah.
for our purposes here, I think.
Not, I don't think we're ever gonna get that fine. And
No,
Oh.
no, with the census blocks, we can't, and that's,
okay, we'll keep Sugar Pine Ridge, Surrey Junction 1, Surrey Junction 2.
So Surrey Junction 1, right there with 228. Surrey Junction 2, whoa.
whoa.
Hey, they missed.
I don't even have the map.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, Surrey Junction 2 is a misnomer. That could actually be, Sutter Highlands.
Oh, there we go.
Makes more sense. Makes more sense.
Both good then.
Yeah, and there's a creek in the middle of them. That's why that separation.
Down the middle.
Got that. We got picked up 2. Banda High.
Jan, go get them, Jan.
Assuming that's, along Banda High Road.
Yep.
Banda High
And I'm
Ranch
assuming
Road.
that is included in one of the Pioneers?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, it's a, community of interest, and we'll keep it.
Within the Pioneer CDP.
Well, Volcano 1, Volcano 2, and Volcano 3. Put 2 and 3 up first. Yeah, they're right there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we'll eliminate 3 for the talking point. Now put up Volcano 1 and Volcano 2. So the question is it the greater
metropolitan.
Greater metropolitan volcano?
I would go with that myself.
Yeah, I would vote for both.
So Volcano 2?
Volcano 2.
Volcano 2. So we scratch 1 and 3.
What's the population on Volcano 2?
133.
We were talking the metropolis.
And, we have Warner Road 1 and Warner Road 2.
Yeah, well, Warner Road actually crosses, the Volcano Road. I initially did it on, the east side, and then when realizing it crossed over to the road, I added in the other one at a different time. And somebody else may have done that too. And it overlaps, it overlaps Grinding Rock, it overlaps Volcano,
And it doesn't connect through to the roads that are on, surrounding Grinding Rock or
Right.
within Grinding Rock. It's
right.
completely separate.
Right, but the road does cross, and so that's the, census block that goes big.
Yeah.
Which starts to show you some overlap in the area, which was also what we were going for. So I would say keeping, Warner Road 2 and not Warner Road 1.
Do we have a That agreeable?
Warner
Agreeable?
Road 2, 211, Warner Road 1, 122.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people on the other side of the road. Mm-hmm. Well, some of it is actually probably not right, because the census block goes past where I would have stopped it, because of the road. It's a dead-end road thing again, that the dead-end road's on opposite sides of a census block. But, so the population is probably less than that for the actual Warner Road, but we can't send lines through there, so.
For the record, we're keeping Warner Road 2.
Can I ask,
Warner Road 1.
can we see the overlap with Grinding Rock? Is that, you might want to break that off.
There's Grinding Rock.
Yeah, it kind of overlaps. And then that overlaps again on Volcano, so. Which is the point being that there's a community there that has multiple layers to it, so.
Okay, I repeat, are we agreed to keep 2 and discard 1? What we're talking about? Okay. Moving on to Willow Estates.
Willow Estates with 230.
Oh, this is the one that, Supervisor, Forrester, signified that went a lot further south in that district. But I honestly don't know the area well enough to make an argument for that. But when we had the joint meeting, he was all over it. So, it can be argued that it's larger than it is, than Don and I originally mapped, so.
Just as an FYI, the 2020 blocks, it would, so 2010 blocks, if you were to select kind of this area, it would cover this big chunk.
Yeah, that's what it did. That's why we didn't do it, yeah.
2020 blocks, it fixes that, and then there's, I think, like 2 more blocks right here.
Well, I would say we could readjust that one to the larger size. Yeah.
I would say, as I've talked to Rich about this particular area, it's out my way. I'm minutes from it, because I'm Mount Echo. And just past the river that's there, it really you almost identify Plymouth side. And for me, in my opinion, Willow Creek Estates was more a Plymouth side. And Rich thought it identified more as Ione, but honestly, I don't think a lot of those out there at Willow Creek, at Willow Creek Estates, I should say, which is a little further up, more towards 16. They really, in my opinion, I think they identify more to Plymouth than they do Ione, but that's just me.
Well, and that will be the discussion when we actually go to do mapping, right?
Right.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
but there's definitely a community there.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely community there, but whether it identifies to the
What's the
Ione side or
population on that?
230.
230, okay.
Okay, for today's, purposes, then we will accept this as Willow Estates with the caveat that it might be larger.
Yeah.
Do we have any new input, new areas, new communities of interest that have, been presented to anybody of the commission or anybody at the county? Any new that have been designed by members of the commission that we haven't discussed yet? Okay. What do we have up there now, Rosalyn?
Oh, I just put up the CDPs and the cities.
Okay. If you put all the accepted communities of interest that we've discussed, can you click on all of those?
Yeah,
Just for the heck of it. And while he's doing that, we'll move on to item number 7, which is a discussion of survey committee summaries. We have 2 members of the committee here. One is ill tonight. Who's making the presentation? Jan or Ann?
Van Houten, and it's going to be a team effort
Good.
because we worked on it equally. We talk about, I'll let Ann talk about the survey because she did most of that. And you can see that there were 39 responses to the survey. And I'll let you go for the rest of that because Ruslan did a lot of it too.
Ruslan helped us figure out how to make sense of all the data that had come in. I think the most important thing we found in reviewing all the survey responses was that the districts were fairly evenly represented. You can see in question 3 that there were 6 or 7 responses from most of the districts. District 5 had 11 responses, and 2 people in the upcountry. We couldn't identify exactly where they were, but it was clear they were in upcountry, said they didn't know what district they were in. But the other important thing in that question is that we only got 6 or 7 and 11 responses from each district, so it's not very representative of our population. So that tells us we really need to do some better outreach if we're going to get more input from the public. If you have the thicker packet, which I forgot to bring up with me, that has the charts, and this is what we were working from to summarize the responses. There are several places where the question was open-ended and people wrote in their remarks. And so we have a word map picture with the larger words being the most commonly used. And again, that doesn't mean they were used a whole lot of times, but they were used more than the other words. And picking through that to determine which words were the most descriptive, I have words written down under question 4, with rural being the first one, was the largest word on the word map, and large, water and large down on the other end of the columns there were the smallest words on the word map. So you can see that people were defining their neighborhood as rural, town, or city, upcountry, private, and then a little more less common subdivision, the roads. Those were things that they used to describe the neighborhood they were in. All but one respondent, I think, were all but 3 respondents said they were residents of Amador County, and of those 3, 1 replied they were a recreation user and 1 replied other. The majority of those respondents were retired, 17 of them. 15 people worked from home or within the county. And then question 6, we asked, how did you learn about the redistricting process? And more of them responded through social media or word of mouth from friends than any other. I think 3 people learned about it through the news media. So we could make some progress, I think, if we get something in the newspapers, both the Ledger Dispatch and the Upcountry News, and get on the radio again, perhaps. Anyway, we need to do more outreach. Most people who responded to question 7 said they were looking at the website for the maps and data. And nearly half of the respondents, 20 people, indicated they had no obstacles to participate in the meetings, but time and location and noticing were the obstacles indicated by a few people. And on the question, is the information on the website useful? Most said fair or good, but 4 said poor and 2 said excellent. So we got some praise there. Question 10 and question 12 gives us the most information about how we might improve our outreach and our website information. So under question 10, highlighting the comments we received, they weren't finding the request for feedback on the webpage, so we have a recommendation for how to fix that. There were some who wanted more information on how to interpret the maps. There were questions about the criteria for changing district lines and wanting more information about the actual process. And providing clear directions on how to access, read, and use the information provided, and explaining what data is currently available and when will the 2020 census data be received and put into our work. So there were concerns about the decision-making process and gerrymandering, which I think we can address by explaining the updates in the law that help preclude us from drawing squiggly lines, and avoiding dividing communities. And again, reiterating that there's more need to seek public input. So with that, I'll let Jan talk about the community of interest.
This was an overwhelming success of a total of 7 responses. 5 from Pine Grove and 2 from Pioneer. I'm glad to see most were from Pine Grove because that's the...
It's your whipping horse.
That's my whipping boy. The sheet that you got, because it was so small, such a few number of responses, I kind of alphabetized them. So every A under every area is from the same person. And if that letter is missing, that means the person didn't answer the question. So needless to say, they're all from Upcountry, Pine Grove. And when asked what the description of their community of interest was, some of them gave actual geographic, most of them gave geographic locations such as Lupe Road and Ponderosa, 3,500 foot elevation. One person said fire risk. So didn't really get the gist of that. Shared interests were mainly wildfire danger concerns, roads and parks, families, just what we would get ordinarily, snow plowing, and what it meant to them. One most important reason for the community of interest to be within one supervisory district was wildfire danger concerns and non-renewal renewal of fire insurance. Funds for needs of Pine Grove. One supervisor will have our best interest in their heart and mind. No split allegiance and priority, with more time to focus on needs. Residents should be able to know exactly what district they are in to eliminate confusion about who is their supervisor. One supervisor who will better address and be a stronger advocate for issues. Supervision by more than one is supervision by none. And nearby COIs that they wanted to be grouped with in one district. Upcountry unincorporated area has more in common than with incorporated cities. And then it was no Pine Grove, Lockwood Fire Department, and then Pine Acres, Gala Manor, Mount Zion, Upper Ridge, Lupe, Irishtown, and Climax were all the ones they wanted incorporated into Pine Grove. And then one was, this community of interest could be aggregated with other rural open space communities, such as Upcountry, agricultural lands of Shenandoah Valley, Valley and Upper Sutter Creek drainage. Kind of interesting. And other thoughts there were just three. Looking forward to favorable income. Pine Grove needs to be taken seriously as a single entity, not as a convenient area to wedge into other districts. And the last one was, while I agree with many of my neighbors that Pine Grove should have consolidated representation, I feel my community is better suited to an adjacent district rather than Pine Grove because of the rural, recreational, agricultural nature of the surrounding area. So that was the summary. But out of all this, we came up with some needs that need to be addressed immediately, which was some question about the friendliness of the website and how to navigate it, how to use it, and additions that needed to be added, such as frequently asked questions. So we did come up with, actually yesterday, and unfortunately Bob is not here, so we don't have the whole thing. But we came up with some frequently asked questions that we have answered and really need your input as to what needs to be added, subtracted, deleted, whatever. And then some of the questions need to have for instance, why do you need my input? And then the link to the survey. What is the community of interest? A link to the submission form, and things of that sort. But the questions we've come up with, do we have time for this? How do you want to do this, Keith?
Good for me. This is pretty important.
There were some changes made, and I don't have them in front of me, so I'm going to go from memory. The first one is why you need my input. And this is the frequently asked questions. During this process, during this process, we seek input from all residents of Amador County to ensure that all comments, questions, and concerns are addressed. We also seek input from residents to make sure this process is as transparent as possible and that the residents are fully informed on the hows and whys of redistricting. And that's where a link to the survey would come in, is right there. The second one is, how do I use the maps? The Redistricting ESRI hub site is available and has a variety of information to help better understand the makeup of Amador County. And here should be a link to the maps. I see you have a question. Okay, that's 1, 2. Third question, is this another gerrymandering exercise? No, the Board of Supervisors appoints a Citizens Advisory Committee that, after evaluating data from the census and public comment, will make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors on how to redraw district lines.
We could also add to that a reference to the law that requires we not be gerrymandering. But we didn't get that in there yet.
Yeah, absolutely. That would finalize it.
Yeah, right. So I'll add that law. Okay, question 4, or if I submit a map, will it be considered by the committee? All submissions received by residents of Amador County will receive equal consideration by the committee. We value input from all interested residents of Amador County.
I think you should say in there at the beginning, will become part of the record and.
Oh. Record, great. Okay. 5 is how are committee members selected? And this is all in the present tense, and I'm wondering if it should probably be in the past tense since committee is always ongoing.
I'd put it in the past tense.
Yeah.
At this point.
Okay, so reading it in the past tense, it's all interested parties submitted an application for appointment to the committee by the Board of Supervisors. After reviewing applications, each district supervisor submitted recommendations to the full board. Two regular members represent their district at all meetings. Alternate members have also been selected who will fill in for a regular member should they not be able to fulfill their duties. Committee members are volunteers that receive no compensation from the county or any other government agency for their participation in the process. Okay. And 6, where are the meetings? Held here. Meeting dates and times and agendas can be found at the web link there. All members of the public are invited to participate either in person or virtually via Zoom. And then 7. Oh, actually, I skipped one. 1, 2, 3, 4 is actually, hope you can bear with me here. Will my community of interest be represented by only one supervisor? Every effort will be made to have COIs represented by only one supervisor. However, geographic limitations and population size may make it to where a COI is represented by more than one supervisor. And that's the link to the COI form, submission form. Okay, and when will the committee submit their final recommendations to the Board of Supervisors? Final question. April to August, Advisory Committee holds a series of meetings and conducts community outreach. April to November? Held, right. September, the U.S. Census released 2020 population.
Mostly.
October, California releases allocated prison population data.
I can explain that later, maybe, it's better.
In November, Redistricting Committee to present supervisory district maps. December, Board of Supervisors adopts final map. So those are the 7 that we came up with.
Right.
Okay. Right. Any other questions that you think should be added or?
Can you move to the microphone?
Yeah, sorry. Jan, if you could correct all this, send the corrected version to Heather, have her send it to all the committee members and alternates, And I would ask the committee members to respond with any changes or corrections or additions that you'd like. Send it back to Heather. She could send it out and about. So we'll get another final version by Wednesday of next week.
Yeah.
And, I think that's soon enough, don't you?
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely want to get it up there as soon as we can.
I do. I don't want to delay it. So the quicker, I'll make it Friday.
That would work
Are
for
you
me.
working Friday, Heather?
Yes.
Okay. Have it back to Heather, your responses back to Heather by Friday.
Yeah.
Then Ruslan will have it as long as if there's any changes.
Yeah, I'll see if I can't get the original from Bob. He's not here tonight. And then I can work on it from there.
Right.
Perfect. The other thing we came up with was, the need for more community outreach. And, so we decided we're gonna use Ann's, you wanna take it from there?
The two-pager that you all approved, and it's on our, there's a link to it on the front page of our website where it says, shareable, I think it's shareable information. And, that's the two-pager. I'm gonna take that and format it so that it can be a newspaper article, so that Keith can send it to the Ledger and to the Upcountry News. And we're gonna do that by early next week, so it can get into.
Try to get into, not this coming Friday, but the following Friday.
Right.
Yeah, sounds good.
And we could get it up on his website before that. So I'm gonna get it, as soon as she gets it to me, Jack will have it.
Ms. Heisenbuttel?
Yeah.
To add to that, if you reach out to the Ledger, it's possible they may just take the version that you have and then format it to their standards, just to save you some time.
Yeah.
And if you need a contact, please let me know. I can give that to you.
The other thing that we were doing about the website is, trying to get more people to sign up for the survey and for the COI submission form. So I don't have it in front of me, but on the front page of the redistricting website, now I'm really talking from memory, you're gonna have to help me here. We want to put in a section that invites people to get more involved. What was the term we used?
I don't have my notes in front of me.
Yeah, I don't have them either. Anyway, what we're going to do is take one part of that paragraph at the top and ask them to really get involved. And then the link, they're going to have a link to get to further information on the two websites. And then that page is going to be broken into two sections: redistricting survey and community of interest. And I think you each have a copy of this in front of you.
We do.
And then there'll be a link at the bottom of both of those to get people to sign up.
So for clarification, right directly to the right of redistricting Amador on the page that you see on the screen would be in link format, the words, link to our surveys, we need your input.
That's it.
And that would be a link, itself. Then it would take it to a page that has these two things on it, that has an introductory paragraph that I've written, and I think everybody will accept it. It's pretty simple, and that would be a separate page. But that's just so people, from the surveys, the committee felt, as if I'm saying it correctly, that people found the website a little not as clear as it could be, and people weren't getting. They were, you have to go over to the index on the left-hand side. Some people don't do that. They don't read, whatever. If you make it nice and bold at the top, you're directing their eyes to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a link. We'll try that.
Yeah, and people don't always read from the top to the bottom, so we want to put it right up front.
Yeah.
It sounds good.
So, and we'll work with Ruslan, and Ruslan said that, so we got this all, it'll work, so.
Well, you never really get through to them unless you really get them angry first. I think Facebook has proved that one. So we don't have the ability to do that with this one, right?
Anything else?
Not for me, anything else from you guys?
No. Okay.
That was awesome.
Well, the last item was, we have another item, Andy.
Yeah, well, Ruslan had some of the data has started coming in, it's Ruslan.
We first noticed, I think when you came in with somebody to work on some of the communities, we first noticed that the 2020 data was available. In looking at it, you can instantly tell that there's something wrong with it. The Mule Creek prison block showed 237 population. A block above it, specifically, I can't show you.
Yeah.
There's a block right here, is this giant block, and that block had about 3,800 people. Clearly that was an error. I contacted Esri directly and filed a claim, and they got back to me today with the same answer that I got from another source, because while I was waiting for Esri, I contacted a couple counties to see how they were doing with all this, if they were in a similar boat. Tuolumne County emailed me or called me back and said that apparently there's actually like a group of like 10 other counties that are in like you could say like a working group with Esri, because they noticed some errors even before the data was released. So we're now part of this thread, so we'll be getting better updates as things progress and get clearer. But the short gist of it is when California reallocated the prison inmate data on September 20th, there were some errors, and then they redid that and fixed some things on the 27th. The 27th or the 28th, they had more edits. So when California does something, Esri has to do more work as well. So projected date for available kind of good up-to-date data was sometime next week, they're saying. Don't know how hopeful that is, but that's what they're saying.
So for clarification, is the 2020 census data apportioned correctly?
Yes.
So it's the 2020 prison population that we're concerned about.
Yeah, I can just.
Is that the only error, the prison population
kind of
that you know of?
Big error, yeah, that I know of, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the key, right?
So for those folks who are sitting on the committee that are fairly well versed by now in manipulating numbers up there, is it possible to begin playing for the non-public use and creating district lines by making that one population thing, the prison population, just remove it like we did before?
Yeah, if we can exclude those two census blocks, then we can start working.
They're pretty big errors.
Oh,
They'll sway it a good amount.
Are those two census blocks just the state prison?
No, only one of them is.
The 230
How many?
I'll show you right now.
Near the prison.
When you bring it up, what we really would like to know is what's in the 2010 census in those two census blocks.
Yeah, if we can.
How many?
compare them.
And then we know that would be the minimum number in there. Because we can null the prison population in the 3,800, right?
Yeah.
Just like we did before.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'll just create a 2020 plan.
While he's doing that, I would like to ask all the committee members to send or to think of a group you can speak to or that you might be able to speak to. And I think everybody on the dais said they would participate in, public relations. And what was clear was with the minimum number of responses we're getting and from the response that we did get, that, they hadn't heard about it. So I'd like us to get out more in the community. So if you have a group you can talk to, see if you can make contact with them, and please do so.
So I have pulled up the redistricting app that shows the 2020 blocks as well as the 2020 populations. The two blocks in questions are this one right here, which this is the prison block. If I pull up an aerial, you would see it. So this is the prison block right here, not this on the right. That's, well, actually that is too, sorry.
Probably the infill, the new part.
Yeah, so go back to this. This block is the prison block, shows 237. That's obviously wrong. And this one right here, this giant one, 3,800. That's a big one.
So the one that's 3,800, do you know what it was in 2010?
I can pull that up. I open another plan. It's something small.
I'm like watching a computer thing.
195 for the big block and 3814 for the prison block. So it looks like
reversed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if someone who is working with a map knows those numbers, and worked around those numbers.
I did one on Monday.
We could have an advantage of moving ahead almost a month earlier than we thought we would.
I did one on Monday, and I included the 230 whatever in the block, and I excluded the 3,800.
Yeah.
And then I got within, like 150 per district balancing, and I just stopped there because I knew that was close enough for, and the idea of how to lay out a mapping system.
This is what Andy was talking about.
Well, that's good news. I mean, it's bad news that it's not correct, but it's good news that it's useful. And so I'd encourage folks to.
It's a trick.
Again.
It's going to be interesting. The status quo will not hold. The numbers are. Using the maps that we had before is not even close.
No,
yeah,
I'm sure not.
Yeah.
So there's almost a 4,000 population swing from 2010 to now. So,
do we have access to the new numbers?
Yeah.
A map that has them all on there?
Yeah,
that's what I'd used. That's what this map. I created this map from that data.
Okay.
Me and a member of the public did that.
Well, where is it?
What?
Is it on the website?
That's that one right there. It's in the list. Are those not on the website though, are they?
we don't have a 2020 web.
No.
Can you go to our map page now that you brought up before?
Yeah.
I'm sorry we're running over time here, but
Where did I put it?
feel free to leave if you like.
We're kind of getting into the nitty gritty.
So, okay, are you saying make some sort of kind of informative or kind of a basic map?
No, this webpage right here, for example.
Yeah.
This is one we've got. Now, the map on the left, Superzero districts.
That's current.
That's current, okay? The next map is the 2010, 2020 census blocks. And that as long as you slide that slider left and right, you can determine the difference between the 20. But no one knows. You have to work at figuring that out.
So actually,
the average person doesn't really care, I don't think, between the little minor differences. So I would suggest we take that map off.
I would agree.
because it just adds confusion. And then if we look at the next map, which is the 2010 census block population of centers, in the clusters, I would suggest we leave that on because it's interesting when you look at it, and it's easy enough to figure out, and I think we'll be using that to some degree. Will we have a 2020 cluster? Or is it just
So
2010?
that's what I was gonna say, the statewide database.
More up-to-date, cleaned up numbers. So it'll have the prison correct, that big block is correct. I could. Could you put that in the layer? I can. So that way we can all be. It can be on here. So that slider one, maybe instead of removing it, you could have the 2020 with numbers. So both will have numbers. So you can slide it and you can see 2010 numbers and 2020 numbers. And it's a quicker, I mean, it may be confusing to some, but to some it might be useful because you can slide between two blocks and you can see the difference between the years.
Well, that was okay as long as it's got numbers on it, that would make it better.
It can.
That'd be better as opposed to just a geographic change.
I don't know, are we allowed? We're allowed to do that, right?
What's wrong with, I give you approval.
Well, it's available online to the public, so. Okay.
What's wrong with just having a map showing the 2020 numbers that we have to work with?
Can do that too.
Just keep it simple. We can always refer back to 2010 with that map. What 2010 number is passe.
Yeah, I don't.
Say what use is
Okay.
it? Who cares?
Okay,
I would prefer to see just a single map with the 2020 numbers.
okay. Yeah, I agree.
So, you want to leave the cluster map on or off? Didn't hear any answers. Has anybody used it?
I have.
Take it off. If we haven't used it, then we don't want it.
No value.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thought it, when I was looking at it several times, I've looked at it, and I thought, it might be useful later on in discussion, but it's 2010 numbers.
Right, without.
So, what's the one on the right?
Oh, that was 2019 population estimates. Oh, yeah, well, once we have the real data, we definitely don't need that.
Yeah, take that one off.
Or updated with 2020 numbers. Yeah, well, that, yeah.
So right now, we've got the supervisorial district.
There'll be supervisorial districts, communities of interest,
Communities of interest,
and the 2020
and
numbers.
2020 numbers.
So full disclosure though, like I said, the statewide database released it on September 20th. They caught some errors or whatever happened, and they re-released it on the 27th, 28th. So I don't know what the difference was between those, and I don't know if Amador County was even impacted in those, whatever it is that they fixed.
Well,
But it looked.
for the next 2 weeks, while you're working on getting them right, at least we can play with some that aren't significantly wrong. That's a safe statement.
Or as close as we can get now, yeah.
Right. Okay, anything else on the map page? I want to thank the committee for the work compiling all of those. Even though it's only 37, I know that wasn't easy to do. So if we had 237, they'd still be working on it. And we'd still be waiting for the results. But thanks for your effort.
And actually that 37 is not a stupid small number. For what the response we get in this county, that's not out of line. I mean, we did the general plan for 10 years and we had people coming to the very last meeting saying this is the first they've heard of it. It's a really difficult county to get the word out.
No, I agree, and I thank you for what you did, 32 of them.
Now, I bring up redistricting every time I see anybody. I tell the checkers at the store about it. I tell people at the gas station. Nobody has heard about it.
So I implore you to, go to church, talk to your church groups. Want to do a sewing group, talk to your sewing group. Or any other public groups, Lions, Rotary and so forth. I've spoken to the Jackson Rotary and Andy's spoken to the Progressive Women's Club and also to the
Pine Grove had a meeting.
Pine Grove group. So if you can think of any ordinance group, neighborhood groups, the suggestion was made in one of those responses was we ought to go to all the city council meetings, but you know, those are poorly attended as well.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say.
And they're already communities of interest that we, I think, have 100% agreed we're not going to be splitting up.
Right.
So those councils don't really, I mean, I know they care, but I mean, they don't really care because it's.
Well, they're not gonna be impacted for sure.
Yeah. So while it's other groups that community that represent the population that we need to talk to. Maybe the water agency,
They draw a crowd.
they draw a crowd, yeah.
Well, they're also gonna be impacted because
We could set
their
that up.
districts are gonna change.
She's still on there.
Right.
And the water district.
School board
Water
too.
districts are the same as.
That's-
The school board might be somebody we want to talk to because their supervised zone districts are exactly the same.
Right.
They might have an interest. So,
Or people that will upset.
the water, anybody on the, like the one who approached the school board?
Don't know if anybody raised their hand.
All right. Wayne, do that. Yeah, but he'll do it in Spanish, I think. That's where where it is now. All right, well, we'll talk about that later. All right, thank you all for attending, appreciate it. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.